The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. "Grandma Rose," my 9-year-old grandson Tommy whispered urgently. "I heard Uncle Mike and Aunt Sarah talking. They said tomorrow they are taking you to that place and getting all your money." I kept my face calm while inside. Fury erupted like a volcano. My son Michael and his wife Sarah had no clue they had just awakened a sleeping dragon. If you are watching this, please subscribe and let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Let me explain how I ended up living with two of the most scheming people I have ever encountered. 2 years ago, my beloved husband Robert died unexpectedly from complications during routine surgery. Michael and Sarah descended on me like hungry buzzards circling fresh roadkill. "Mom, you cannot possibly manage this big house alone anymore," Michael declared with fake concern dripping from his voice. "Come live with us. We will take excellent care of you, I promise." What they really meant was come be our unpaid housekeeper and walking wallet. But Tommy's innocent warning changed everything in that moment. While he continued building with his blocks on the living room carpet, I quietly dialed my attorney, Patricia Williams. We had been college roommates decades ago, and she had handled Robert's estate planning. "Patricia, this is Rose Henderson. I need an emergency meeting today. Can you see me at 3 p.m? "Everything all right, Rosie? Let me just say that some people are about to discover they have seriously underestimated me." Next, I called my credit union where Robert and I had banked for 35 years. "This is Rose Henderson, account number 89456. I need to discuss transferring funds immediately, please." The representative confirmed what I suspected. Thanks to Robert's substantial life insurance policy, his pension payout, and our lifetime of careful saving, I had accumulated far more wealth than Michael and Sarah realized. Much more. I hung up and glanced at Tommy, still innocently playing with his toys. This sweet child had no idea he just saved his grandmother from financial ruin. I ruffled his blonde hair. "Tommy, sweetheart, would you like to help Grandma with a very important project today?" He looked up with those sparkling green eyes so much like his father's used to be before greed corrupted them. "What kind of project, Grandma Rose?" "The kind that teaches people you should never count chickens before they hatch, honey." At exactly 2:30 p.m., I told Tommy we were going on an adventure. I grabbed my leather handbag, the one containing all my vital documents that I had started carrying everywhere since Robert's death. Call it widow's intuition, but something deep inside warned me this confrontation was inevitable. We walked 6 blocks to the small cafe where Patricia was waiting at a corner table. Her expression grew increasingly grim as I explained the situation in detail. "They think I am some helpless old woman they can just warehouse somewhere while they pillage my life savings." Patricia nodded seriously. "What exactly do you want me to do, Rose?" "Everything. New will, revoked power of attorney, asset transfers, bank account changes, the complete package. And Patricia, I want every single document completed before they return from their so-called errands this afternoon." As we headed to her law office, Tommy skipped happily beside me, humming his favorite cartoon theme song. He had absolutely no idea he was about to witness the most spectacular family implosion in Henderson family history. Sitting in Patricia's professional office while Tommy colored quietly in the waiting area, I reflected bitterly on my own blindness to their manipulation. The warning signs had been glaringly obvious from the very beginning. But overwhelming grief makes even intelligent people incredibly stupid and vulnerable. After Robert's funeral service, when Michael first suggested I sell the family home and move in with them, I genuinely believed it came from love and concern. "The housing market is absolutely on fire right now, Mom. You could get top dollar for this place, and we would love having you close by to help with Tommy." What he conveniently failed to mention was that my monthly Social Security check would substantially help cover their mortgage payment, and free babysitting services would save them over $900 monthly. I sold my gorgeous 4-bedroom colonial home, the sanctuary Robert and I had lovingly shared for 28 wonderful years, and foolishly handed over every penny of the proceeds to help them eliminate their crushing debt load. $700,000 vanished in one transaction. I should have recognized the red flags immediately, I told Patricia as she methodically prepared all the legal paperwork. The way Sarah's eyes practically glowed when she heard the final sale price. The sudden, overwhelming friendliness after years of barely tolerating my presence at family gatherings. The past 2 years had been a masterclass in psychological manipulation and financial exploitation. Every single time I mentioned getting my own apartment somewhere, Michael would expertly deploy guilt tactics. "Mom, Tommy absolutely needs you here. You are so incredibly good with him, and frankly, at your age, would you not rather be surrounded by loving family?" My age. I was 72, not 92. I could drive confidently, cook elaborate meals, balance checkbooks, and apparently plan revenge far better than they could execute their pathetic schemes. Sarah had been more subtle in her approach, but equally calculating and manipulative. "Oh, Rose, your experience with children is absolutely invaluable to us. Tommy is excelling in school, and it is definitely because you help him with homework every evening." Translation: continue providing unpaid labor while we go out partying 3 nights every week. The absolute worst part was how systematically they had isolated me from my support network. "You seem so busy with Tommy these days," Sarah would say sweetly. "We did not think you would want to join the church ladies' auxiliary anymore." When my book club friends called to invite me, Michael would intercept. "Mom is not feeling up to visitors right now. She needs her rest." Slowly but systematically, they cut me off from every friendship and social connection I had maintained for decades. But they made one critical miscalculation. They severely underestimated my intelligence and determination. Patricia slid documents across her polished desk. "This formally revokes their power of attorney and designates me as your legal agent. This transfers your accounts to a different bank they know nothing about. And this," she smiled with satisfaction, "is your completely revised will." I signed each document with a confident flourish. What about the house money I gave them initially? That becomes very interesting legally. Since there was no formal loan agreement or promissory note, we can argue it was a conditional gift based on you living there permanently. If they breach that implicit contract by forcing you out, they become legally obligated to repay every penny plus accumulated interest. I glanced at my gold watch. 3:15 p.m. They would return home by 4:30, expecting to find their compliant elderly mother ready to be shipped off to Sunset Manor nursing home like an unwanted piece of furniture. Instead, they would discover a woman who had just reclaimed complete control of her destiny. Tommy burst through the office door with his coloring book. "Grandma Rose, are we finished with all the boring grown-up paperwork?" "Almost finished, sweetheart. Just one final stop to make." Our last destination was First Community Bank, where Robert and I had maintained accounts for over 3 decades. Tommy sat contentedly in the children's area with a lollipop while I met privately with Helen, the branch manager who had known us personally for years. "Mrs. Henderson, I must say this request is highly unusual. You want to transfer everything today." "Everything. All checking accounts, savings accounts, certificates of deposit, money market accounts. Absolutely everything to the new account at Metro Bank downtown." Helen's fingers danced across her computer keyboard. "That represents a very substantial amount of money. Are you completely certain about this decision?" I thought about Michael's behavior this morning. How he avoided making eye contact when he claimed they were running important errands. How Sarah had hugged me extra tightly, almost like she was saying a final goodbye. How they insisted I stay home with Tommy instead of accompanying them, which broke their usual pattern of family outings. I have never been more certain of any decision in my entire life. The transfer process took nearly 2 hours to complete properly. $847,000. Robert's life insurance payout, our retirement savings accumulated over 4 decades, the proceeds from selling our home, and every penny I had saved through a lifetime of careful financial planning. Money they had simply assumed would become theirs once they had me declared mentally incompetent. "Mrs. Henderson," Helen said carefully, "if you do not mind me asking, why such sudden urgency with all these transfers?" I smiled pleasantly. "Let me just say that some people are about to learn a very valuable lesson about not counting their chickens before they hatch." By 4 p.m. Tommy and I were back home. I sent him upstairs to play in his room and began preparing their favorite dinner from scratch. Beef stroganoff with homemade egg noodles and fresh green beans. If this was destined to be my final meal in this house, I wanted it to be absolutely memorable for all the right reasons. As I chopped onions, I imagined the conversation they probably had this morning. The appointment at Sunset Manor is scheduled for 5:30, Michael would have said confidently. We will break the news to her after dinner tonight. By tomorrow morning, she will be settled in her new home, and we can begin the power of attorney process immediately. They had probably already started spending my money in their minds. Sarah had been obsessing over a brand new luxury SUV for months. Michael had mentioned wanting to completely renovate their outdated kitchen. They had even discussed taking an expensive European vacation, something they claimed they could finally afford soon. At 4:25 p.m. sharp, I heard their car pulling into the driveway. I smoothed my floral apron and checked my appearance in the hallway mirror. I looked exactly like a harmless grandmother preparing a loving meal for her devoted family. Absolutely perfect. The front door opened and I could hear their voices, unusually animated and artificially cheerful. They were clearly overcompensating, probably wrestling with guilt about their planned betrayal. "Mom, we are home," Michael called out loudly. "Something smells absolutely incredible in here." "Just making your favorite meal," I called back sweetly. "Tommy is upstairs playing." "How did your errands go today?" There was a brief hesitation. "Fine," Sarah answered quickly. "Just typical running around town, you know how it is." I smiled to myself knowingly. In approximately 2 hours, they were going to discover that while they were running around town plotting my downfall, I had been running circles around their pathetic scheme. Dinner was an Oscar-worthy performance of passive-aggressive theater. I served their plates with extra attention, asked detailed questions about their day with apparent genuine interest, and complimented Sarah on her new haircut. They squirmed uncomfortably like guilty children caught stealing cookies, exchanging nervous glances whenever they thought I was not observing them closely. "This stroganoff is absolutely phenomenal, Mom," Michael said, though I noticed he was barely eating despite his enthusiastic praise. "You really outdid yourself tonight." "Well, I wanted this evening to be truly special," I replied with warm sincerity. "You never know when circumstances might change dramatically." Sarah nearly choked on her wine. "Change? What do you mean by that exactly?" "Oh, just life in general, dear. Nothing ever stays exactly the same forever, does it? People, situations, living arrangements, financial circumstances. Everything evolves eventually." They managed to finish dinner despite the obvious tension thick enough to cut with a sharp knife. Tommy chattered innocently about his school day, completely oblivious to the undercurrent of impending confrontation swirling around the dining table. At exactly 7 p.m., Michael cleared his throat nervously. "Mom, could we please speak with you privately in the living room?" "Tommy, go play upstairs for a little while, please." Here it comes, I thought with anticipation. The moment they have been building toward all day long. We settled in the living room with them positioned together on the sofa, and me in my favorite armchair by the large window. Michael fidgeted anxiously with his hands. Sarah stared intently at the coffee table as if it held fascinating secrets. Finally, Michael found his voice. "Mom, Sarah and I have been discussing your situation extensively, and we believe it might be time for you to consider alternative living arrangements that would better suit your needs." I tilted my head with the picture of innocent confusion. "Alternative arrangements? Do you mean like finding my own apartment somewhere nearby?" "Not exactly," Sarah jumped in quickly, her voice artificially sweet and caring. "We were thinking more along the lines of assisted living, somewhere with other people your age, organized activities, medical professionals on staff around the clock." "You mean a nursing home," I stated flatly. "It is not technically a nursing home," Michael said defensively. "It is a lovely retirement community. We visited there today, actually. Sunset Manor. They have beautiful facilities, excellent programs, and we have already made preliminary arrangements." I leaned back comfortably in my chair, allowing the silence to stretch uncomfortably. They expected tears, desperate protests, maybe even pathetic begging. Instead, I smiled calmly. "Well, that is certainly interesting timing on your part." "What do you mean?" Jessica's voice carried a sharp edge of worry and suspicion. I mean that I also spent today exploring various options and making arrangements. I pulled out my cell phone and scrolled to Patricia's contact information. Patricia, this is Rose. Could you please come over now? Yes, I believe it is definitely time for that conversation we discussed. Michael's face drained of all color. Mom, what exactly are you doing? Taking care of business, sweetheart. Just like you taught me to do years ago. I stood up gracefully, smoothing my skirt. Patricia Williams will be here in 15 minutes to explain some significant changes I made today. You might want to remain seated for this discussion. Sarah grabbed Michael's arm desperately. What is she talking about? What changes? The doorbell rang precisely 15 minutes later. I opened it to find Patricia with her leather briefcase and a professionally serious expression. Good evening, Rose. Michael. Sarah. Patricia, I said cheerfully. Please explain to my son and daughter-in-law exactly what we accomplished today. Patricia settled into the chair across from Michael and Sarah, who looked like defendants facing a firing squad. Tommy had thankfully fallen asleep upstairs, sparing him from witnessing the nuclear bomb I was about to detonate in their lives. Where should I begin? Patricia asked, opening her briefcase methodically. The power of attorney seems like an appropriate starting point, I suggested sweetly. Patricia nodded professionally. As of today, Michael and Sarah Henderson no longer possess any legal authority over Rose Henderson's personal or financial affairs. The power of attorney document they were planning to utilize has been formally and permanently revoked. Michael shot to his feet in shock. Planning to utilize. We were not planning anything specific. Sit down, son, I said quietly but firmly. We both know that statement is a complete lie. Sarah's face had turned white as fresh snow. Rose, I honestly do not understand why you would do something like this. Because 9-year-old boys have much better hearing than adults give them credit for. I looked directly at her with steel in my voice. Tommy told me about your conversation this morning regarding putting me in a home and taking my money. The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. Michael slowly sank back onto the sofa, his face a mask of pure panic and disbelief. Sarah's mouth opened and closed repeatedly like a fish gasping desperately for oxygen. Patricia, I continued calmly, would you mind explaining the financial arrangements we made today? Certainly. Mrs. Henderson has transferred all her assets to new accounts at a different banking institution. This includes approximately $847,000, representing her life savings, insurance proceeds, pension funds, and the money she received from selling her family home. You cannot possibly do this to us. Sarah finally found her voice. That money you gave us was a gift. Actually, Patricia said calmly, I have thoroughly reviewed the situation, and there was no formal loan agreement or gift documentation. The money was provided under the clear understanding that Rose would live here permanently as part of the family. If that arrangement is terminated against her wishes, she has every legal right to request complete repayment with accumulated interest. Michael ran his hands through his hair frantically. Mom, please let us discuss this reasonably and calmly. You do not understand the full implications of what you are doing to our family. Oh, but I understand perfectly. I stood up, feeling more empowered than I had felt in months. I understand that you have been systematically planning to have me declared mentally incompetent so you could gain complete control over my finances. I understand that you have been deliberately isolating me from friends and treating me like unpaid domestic help. And I understand that you have been mentally spending money that was never yours to begin with. We were genuinely trying to protect you. Brian's voice rose defensively before he caught himself. You are 72 years old, Mom. Living independently is not safe anymore. I am not living independently, I replied coldly. I am living with people who view me as nothing more than a financial burden and a convenient bank account. There is a significant difference between those two situations. Sarah leaned forward desperately, tears forming in her eyes. Rose, surely we can work this out somehow. Maybe we approached this situation incorrectly, but we truly do care about you and your well-being. I laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound whatsoever. You care about my monthly Social Security check deposited directly into your account. You care about free babysitting services that save you hundreds of dollars. You care about access to my money, but you do not care about me as a human being with feelings and rights. Patricia cleared her throat professionally. There is one additional matter we need to discuss with you both. My smile turned predatory with satisfaction. Ah yes, the best part is still coming. Patricia pulled out another folder from her briefcase. Rose has also completely updated her last will and testament. The previous version left her entire estate to Michael with educational provisions for Tommy. The new version makes some very significant changes to those arrangements. Michael's face had progressed from pale to a sickly green color. What kind of changes are we talking about? I decided to deliver this devastating blow personally. The kind where Tommy inherits everything, held in a trust fund until he reaches 25 years old. You and Sarah receive absolutely nothing. Not one single penny of my estate. Sarah let out a sound somewhere between a gasp and a wounded animal's cry. You cannot possibly do this to us. We have mortgage payments, car loans, credit cards, Tommy's future college expenses to consider. You should have considered all of that before you decided to rob me blind while I was still alive to witness it. I was completely finished playing nice. Did you really think I was so stupid and helpless that I would not figure out your pathetic little scheme? Sunset Manor costs $4,000 monthly. You had it all calculated perfectly, did you not? Warehouse me there, sell all my personal belongings, control my money completely, and pocket the substantial difference for yourselves. Michael tried one final desperate approach. Mom, I am your son, your only child. Dad would have wanted you to take care of me and my family financially. That was his biggest mistake, bringing Robert into this discussion. Your father, I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, worked 2 jobs for over 25 years so we could save every possible penny for retirement security. He sacrificed personal luxuries and entertainment so we could build something meaningful to leave you and Tommy. And you were planning to steal it while I was still alive and aware. I walked to the fireplace mantel where Robert's photograph sat prominently and picked it up, gazing at his kind, honest face. You know what your father would say if he could see you right now? He would say that he should have done this much sooner. I set the photograph down gently and turned back to face them. Patricia, there is one more legal document, is there not? Patricia nodded grimly. The formal eviction notice. Rose has decided she no longer feels safe or comfortable living in this house. As a tenant without a formal lease agreement, you have 30 days to find her suitable alternative housing arrangements. Eviction notice. Michael's voice cracked with disbelief. This is our house, Mom. Actually, I said, pulling out my own folder of documents, that is where things become legally very interesting. Remember that $700,000 I gave you? I have all the bank records showing the electronic transfer came directly from my account to yours, specifically to pay off your mortgage and credit card debts completely. No formal loan documents were ever signed, but I have saved emails where you explicitly promised I would always have a secure home here with your family. Sarah's face crumpled as understanding dawned completely. You want all the money back, do you not? Every single penny of it. Plus 18 months of rent you should have been paying me for room and board. Plus the money you saved on babysitting services. Plus compensation for emotional distress and financial exploitation. I smiled sweetly. I calculate that total amount at approximately $800,000, all things considered. Brian's voice was barely audible. We do not have anywhere near that kind of money available. Then I guess you will have to get creative and resourceful. Sell this house immediately, liquidate your retirement accounts, get second jobs, work overtime, do whatever it takes to repay your debt. I shrugged casually. Or declare bankruptcy if that becomes necessary. Either way, you will not be doing it with access to my money anymore. Patricia stood up, snapping her briefcase closed efficiently. I will leave you folks to process this information thoroughly. Rose, your new apartment is ready for occupancy whenever you want to move in. The lease has been signed and the deposit paid. As she headed toward the door, Sarah called out desperately. What about Tommy? You cannot just abandon your grandson like this. I paused at the bottom of the stairs, my hand resting on the wooden banister. I am not abandoning Tommy in any way. I am teaching him an invaluable lesson about what happens when you try to cheat and manipulate people who love you unconditionally. He will understand and appreciate this lesson someday when he is older. I climbed the stairs slowly to pack my belongings, leaving Michael and Sarah to contemplate the smoking ruins of their perfect scheme. Tomorrow I would begin my new independent life with dignity and tact. Tonight I would sleep better than I had in 2 years. Behind me, I could hear Sarah beginning to sob uncontrollably. For weeks later, I was enjoying my morning coffee in my beautiful new 2-bedroom apartment overlooking Riverside Park, watching joggers and dog walkers enjoying the crisp autumn sunshine. The furnished apartment was costing me $1,800 monthly, a fraction of what I had been contributing to Michael and Sarah's household expenses without any appreciation. My phone rang insistently. Michael's name appeared on the caller ID for the 20th time this week. I allowed it to go directly to voicemail, same as the previous 19 calls. When it stopped ringing, I played his latest desperate message. "Mom, please call me back immediately. We desperately need to talk about this situation. This has gone way too far now. Tommy keeps asking where you went and Sarah is having severe panic attacks. We can work this out if you will just be reasonable about everything." Reasonable. That was remarkably ironic coming from someone who had planned to have me committed against my will. I deleted the message and called Patricia instead. "How is our lawsuit progressing?" "Slowly but steadily. They hired Robert Martinez from Martinez and Associates. He is actually quite good at what he does." Patricia's tone was measured and professional. "He is arguing that the money you gave them was an unconditional gift, not a loan, and that you cannot retroactively demand repayment without proper legal documentation." "What did you tell him in response?" "That we have 18 months of documented evidence showing they treated you as a paying tenant, not a beloved family member. Bank records, email communications, grocery receipts where you paid for household expenses, utility bills in your name. The pattern of systematic financial abuse is crystal clear." I smiled, settling back comfortably in my favorite chair. "What else is happening?" "Martinez filed a motion claiming you are not mentally competent to make these significant financial decisions independently. They want a court-ordered psychological evaluation to determine your capacity." That completely wiped the smile from my face. They are still attempting to have me declared incompetent. It is a desperate Hail Mary legal strategy. They know they are losing badly, so they are throwing everything possible at the wall to see what might stick. Patricia paused thoughtfully. "Rose, there is something else you should know. They have been asking pointed questions about Robert's life insurance policy, specifically whether you were fully aware of all the designated beneficiaries." A chill ran down my spine like ice water. "What do you mean by all the beneficiaries?" "I am not entirely certain yet. Martinez hinted that there might be some irregularities in how the insurance money was initially distributed to you. I am investigating that angle thoroughly." After I hung up, I sat staring out at the park, unease settling in my stomach like a heavy stone. Robert had always handled our insurance policies and investment accounts personally. I had trusted him completely, signing whatever paperwork he placed in front of me without reading every detail carefully. What if Michael knew something significant that I did not? That afternoon, I drove to Tommy's elementary school. I waited across the street in my car until I saw him walking toward the playground after school dismissal. He looked smaller than I remembered, and noticeably sadder. I got out and called his name softly. His face lit up like Christmas morning, and he ran to me, nearly knocking me over with his enthusiastic hug. "Grandma Rose, I missed you so incredibly much. Why did you leave us?" My heart broke into pieces. "I had to leave, sweetheart. Sometimes adults make terrible mistakes and other adults have to protect themselves from being hurt. Are you ever coming home to live with us?" "Cannot do that, Tommy. But maybe you could visit me at my new place sometime. My apartment building has a swimming pool and a game room." His eyes widened with excitement. "Really? You have a pool? Really and truly? Ask your parents if you can come see me this weekend, okay?" I hugged him tightly. "I love you so much, Tommy. Please never forget that, no matter what happens." As I drove away, I saw Sarah's car pulling into the school parking lot frantically. She must have spotted me talking with Tommy because my phone started ringing immediately and persistently. I did not answer it. The court-ordered psychological evaluation was scheduled for Friday morning at Dr. Elizabeth Turner's professional office. I arrived early, dressed in my best navy blue suit with pearl jewelry. The picture of a competent, well-groomed senior citizen. Dr. Turner was younger than I had expected, perhaps 45 years old, with intelligent eyes behind stylish glasses. Mrs. Henderson, I want you to understand that this evaluation was requested by your son's legal team, but I work completely independently. I am here to assess your current mental state objectively, not to take anyone's side in this legal dispute. I appreciate that professional approach, Dr. Turner. For 2 intensive hours, she administered cognitive tests, memory exercises, and detailed questions about my recent financial decisions. I answered everything honestly and thoroughly, explaining my reasoning process for each action I had taken. You demonstrate very clear recall of events and strong analytical reasoning skills, she noted professionally. Can you tell me about your relationship with your son and daughter-in-law? I chose my words carefully and thoughtfully. They are struggling financially, and I believe they viewed me as a convenient solution to their money problems rather than as a person with my own legitimate needs and legal rights. Do you feel your recent actions might be considered extreme by some people? I looked her directly in the eyes with confidence. Dr. Turner, if someone was systematically planning to steal your entire life savings and have you committed against your will, what would you consider an appropriate and measured response? She made a note carefully. Point well taken, Mrs. Henderson. That evening, Patricia called with an important update. The evaluation went very well in your favor. She is recommending no conservatorship or guardianship be established. Dr. Turner found you completely competent. But Rose, we have discovered a significant problem. I found out what Martinez was hinting about regarding the insurance policy. My stomach dropped like a stone. Please tell me what you found. Robert had a second life insurance policy, a substantial one. $2 million purchased 7 years before his death. You were not the only designated beneficiary on that policy. The room seemed to spin around me dizzyingly. Who else was named? Someone named Linda Peterson. Does that name ring any bells for you? The name hit me like a physical punch to the stomach. Linda Peterson. Robert's administrative assistant from the engineering company where he had worked for 12 years. The attractive brunette who had always been slightly too friendly at company holiday parties and social gatherings. She received half the insurance money, Rose. $1 million. The insurance company issued 2 separate checks. One to you for $1 million, one to her for $1 million. But I only received $500,000 from his life insurance policy, I said weakly. That is exactly what has Martinez so interested and suspicious. If Robert designated Linda for $1 million, and you were supposed to receive $1 million, where did your other $500,000 disappear to? The pieces clicked together with horrible, devastating clarity. Michael had personally handled all of Robert's insurance paperwork and claims after the funeral. He had told me the policy was only worth $500,000 after taxes, fees and penalties. I had been so consumed with grief. I had believed every word without questioning anything. My son stole $500,000 from me. It certainly appears that way based on the evidence. And if he has been sitting on that information while simultaneously trying to have you declared mentally incompetent, it demonstrates a clear pattern of financial manipulation and fraud that goes back several years. I closed my eyes tightly, feeling the crushing weight of multiple betrayals simultaneously. My husband had been unfaithful to me emotionally and financially. My son had been systematically stealing from me long before he attempted to have me committed. The 2 men I had trusted most completely in the world had both betrayed me in the worst possible ways. But instead of despair overwhelming me, I felt something else rising powerfully in my chest. Pure, crystalline, focused rage like I had never experienced before. Patricia, I said quietly but with deadly determination. I want to completely destroy him legally and financially. I spent the entire weekend meticulously planning my next strategic move. If Michael thought he could manipulate and blackmail me with hidden information about Robert's extramarital affairs, he was about to learn that two people could play that particular game. Monday morning, I called Linda Peterson directly. According to my internet research, she was now Linda Peterson Davis, living in suburban Denver with her accountant husband and 3 teenage children. The phone rang several times before a woman answered cautiously. "Hello, Linda. This is Rose Henderson, Robert's widow." The silence stretched so long I wondered if she had disconnected the call. Finally, she spoke in a shaky voice. "Oh my goodness, Rose. I was not expecting to hear from you. How did you get my phone number?" "I am very resourceful when circumstances require it, Linda." I kept my voice pleasant and conversational. "I think we need to discuss Robert's life insurance policy in detail." "I honestly do not know what you mean by that, Rose." "Honey, I know about the $2 million policy. I know you received half of it. What I am curious about is what you know about my missing half." Another long, uncomfortable pause. "Your son told me you had received your portion of the money." "My son told you that? When exactly did you have conversations with my son?" "He called me shortly after Robert's funeral to inform me about the service arrangements and to discuss the insurance situation in detail." I felt my pulse quickening with anger. "What exactly did he tell you about the insurance situation?" "He explained that you were struggling severely with grief, and that he was temporarily handling your financial affairs as your designated agent. He said the insurance company had made a clerical error and issued 2 checks when there should have been only 1, and that I should cash mine immediately and not worry about any complications." The sheer audacity took my breath away completely. Michael had not only stolen my money, but he had manipulated Robert's mistress into being unwittingly complicit in covering up his theft. "Linda, that check you received was supposed to be split equally between us. Robert designated each of us for $500,000. Not $1 million each. That is definitely not what Michael told me at the time. He showed me official-looking paperwork and documentation. Forged paperwork, I am absolutely certain." I let that devastating revelation sink in properly. "Linda, I think we have both been expertly played and manipulated by my son. The question now is what we are going to do about this situation." Tuesday morning, I was waiting outside Michael's office building when he arrived for work. His face turned white as fresh snow when he spotted me sitting calmly on the lobby sofa reading a magazine. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "Hello, Michael. Beautiful morning, is it not?" I stood up gracefully, smoothing my skirt. "I thought we could have lunch together. There is so much we need to catch up on and discuss." He glanced around nervously, acutely aware that his professional colleagues were observing our interaction with curiosity. "I am really swamped with work today, Mom." "Oh, I absolutely insist on lunch. In fact, I already made us a reservation at Antonio's Italian restaurant. You remember Antonio's, do you not? Where you took me to celebrate your big promotion 2 years ago." His jaw tightened visibly, but he nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but I cannot stay very long." Antonio's was bustling with the lunch crowd, providing perfect cover for what I was about to unleash. We ordered our meals, engaged in superficial small talk about Tommy's school progress, and I patiently waited until his guard was completely down. Then I smiled sweetly and said casually, "I had the most enlightening conversation with Linda Peterson yesterday." Michael's fork clattered loudly against his plate, drawing stares from nearby diners. His face went through several dramatic color changes before settling on a sickly ash gray. Around us, the restaurant hummed with normal lunch conversation, while my son contemplated the complete ruins of his carefully constructed web of lies. "I do not know what Linda might have told you, Mom." He finally managed to speak. "She told me that you convinced her the insurance company made an error, that she deserved the full $1 million instead of the $500,000 Robert actually designated for her." I took a deliberate sip of my iced tea, savoring this moment of revelation. Imagine my complete shock when I realized you had stolen $500,000 from me to cover up your father's affair. "I was protecting you from additional pain." Michael's voice rose defensively, then dropped when other patrons looked in our direction. You were absolutely devastated after Dad died. Finding out about Linda and their relationship would have destroyed you completely and permanently. So instead, you decided to profit handsomely from my ignorance and grief. It was not like that at all, Mom. I used that money to pay off our mortgage completely to secure Tommy's future and our family's financial stability. You would have just deposited it in savings accounts anyway, where it would sit earning minimal interest. I laughed, a sound sharp enough to cut through steel. You stole $500,000 from your grieving mother and somehow convinced yourself it was an act of charity and protection. Michael leaned across the table desperately. Mom, please let me explain everything properly. Dad left Linda that money because she was carrying his child. The world stopped spinning on its axis. What did you just say? Linda was pregnant with Dad's baby. She miscarried in the 5th month. But Dad had already changed the beneficiary designation to provide financial support for the child. When she lost the baby, he intended to change it back to the original arrangement, but then he had his fatal heart attack before he could complete the paperwork. I stared at him in complete shock, processing this additional layer of betrayal and deception. Frank had not merely had an affair. He had gotten his mistress pregnant, and Michael had known this devastating truth all along. How long have you known about this situation? Linda called me immediately after the funeral service. She was an emotional wreck, grieving for Dad and simultaneously dealing with the trauma of the miscarriage. She showed me medical records, insurance paperwork, everything. And instead of telling me the truth like an honest person, you decided to steal from both of us. I convinced her she deserved the full $1 million after everything she had endured. And I used your portion to eliminate our family's debt burden so you would not have to worry about us struggling financially while you processed your grief. The twisted logic was almost impressive in its self-serving nature. You stole from me to pay your personal bills and somehow convinced yourself it was an act of love and charity. Michael's phone buzzed urgently. He glanced at the screen and went even paler than before. It is Sarah. She says Patricia Williams is at the house with official legal papers. I smiled with deep satisfaction. Oh, that would be the criminal fraud charges I filed this morning with the district attorney's office. Criminal charges. His voice cracked with panic. Insurance fraud, elder abuse, theft by deception, conspiracy to commit fraud. Patricia was quite thorough in her documentation. I signaled the waiter for our check. You see, Michael, when you forge documents and provide false information to insurance companies about beneficiaries, that constitutes felony insurance fraud. When you systematically steal money from your elderly mother, that is classified as elder abuse. And when you do both while simultaneously planning to have her declared mentally incompetent, that demonstrates clear premeditation and conspiracy. Michael's hands were trembling visibly. Mom, please think about Tommy's future. If I go to prison, what happens to him? You should have considered Tommy's well-being before you decided to become a criminal and a thief. I stood up, leaving cash for my untouched meal. But do not worry about his long-term future. He will be very well provided for financially. What exactly do you mean by that? I leaned down and whispered directly in his ear. Linda is returning every penny of the money that rightfully belonged to me. All of it plus interest. It turns out she is not nearly as comfortable with theft and fraud as you apparently are. Michael's face completely crumpled. You cannot do this to me, Mom. I am your son. You are absolutely right. You are my son. And that is precisely what makes your betrayal so much more painful and unforgivable. I walked out of the restaurant with my head held high and climbed into my car, hands perfectly steady on the steering wheel. One final stop to make before this chapter closed permanently. The next morning, I sat in my comfortable apartment watching the local news coverage of Michael's arrest. Local insurance agent charged with elder abuse and multiple fraud counts, the news anchor reported professionally. Michael Henderson allegedly stole over $500,000 from his mother's insurance settlement, while simultaneously planning to have her declared mentally incompetent to gain control of her remaining assets. My phone had been ringing constantly all morning. Reporters seeking interviews, concerned neighbors, old friends who had seen the shocking news story. I ignored every call except one that truly mattered. Grandma Rose. Tommy's voice sounded small and frightened. Mommy has been crying all morning and she will not explain why Daddy is not coming home tonight. My heart shattered for this innocent child caught in the crossfire of adult deception and greed. I will be right there, sweetheart. Give me 30 minutes. I found Tommy at his best friend's house where Sarah had dropped him off before rushing to the jail to see Michael. The 9-year-old looked utterly lost and confused, clutching his favorite superhero action figure like a lifeline. Are you in trouble too, Grandma Rose? I knelt down to his eye level, taking his small hands gently in mine. No, sweetie, I am not in any trouble at all. Sometimes adults make very poor choices and they have to face serious consequences for those choices. Is my daddy a bad person now? Your daddy is not a bad person, Tommy. But he did some very bad things to people he should have protected and loved, and now he has to make those things right. Over the next several hours, I carefully explained everything to Tommy using age-appropriate language and concepts. How people who truly love each other must always be honest and trustworthy. How taking things that belong to other people is wrong, regardless of your reasons or justifications. How sometimes protecting someone you love means making extremely difficult and painful choices. Are you still angry at my daddy? I considered his question very carefully before responding. I am deeply disappointed in your daddy and profoundly sad that he chose to hurt me the way he did. But I will always love him because he gave me the most precious gift in the world. That evening, Sarah came to collect Tommy. She looked completely haggard and emotionally drained. Her eyes were red and swollen from hours of crying. The lawyers say he could face up to 7 years in prison if he is convicted on all charges. That decision is ultimately up to the judge and jury now. Sarah, I know we have hurt you terribly, but Michael is scared and confused and desperate. Cannot you find it in your heart to forgive him and drop these charges? I looked at this woman who had actively participated in planning to steal my independence and dignity, who had smiled to my face while plotting my downfall behind my back. 2 years ago, I would have crumbled completely under the crushing weight of guilt she was attempting to heap on my shoulders. Sarah, I forgave Michael the exact moment I filed those criminal charges against him. Forgiveness does not mean enabling continued bad behavior or ignoring natural consequences. It means I am not going to allow his choices to poison my future happiness and peace of mind. 6 months later, Michael accepted a plea agreement to avoid a lengthy trial. He received 2 years in minimum security prison and 5 years of supervised probation. The judge ordered complete financial restitution of $850,000 plus accumulated interest and legal fees. Sarah was forced to sell their house immediately and move into a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. She found employment at a medical clinic to support herself and Tommy independently. It was not easy by any measure, but she was finally learning to stand on her own feet without depending on stolen money. Tommy visited me every weekend without exception. We would swim in the apartment complex pool, bake cookies from scratch, work on his homework together, and play board games for hours. He proved remarkably resilient, the way children often are, and he was absorbing valuable lessons about honesty, accountability, and the critical difference between genuine love and manipulation. As for me, I enrolled in watercolor painting classes at the community college, joined a book discussion group, and started volunteering at the local animal rescue shelter. At 72 years old, I was finally living the life I truly wanted instead of the life others expected me to accept passively. Robert's betrayal still caused sharp pain sometimes during quiet moments when I was alone with my thoughts and memories. But I had learned something incredibly important and liberating. Being hurt by someone does not make you weak or foolish, and being kind and trusting does not make you stupid or naive. The day Michael was released from prison after serving his full sentence, he called me immediately. Mom, it is me. I know I do not deserve your forgiveness or trust, but could we possibly try to start over somehow? I want to make this right between us. I looked out my window at the park where children were playing happily and couples were walking hand in hand. At the world full of possibilities and second chances I had almost allowed to slip away through my fingers. Yes, I said after a long thoughtful pause. But this time we rebuild our relationship completely on my terms and conditions. Some stories end with tearful reconciliation and complete forgiveness. Others end with justice served and fresh beginnings. Mine ended with both elements perfectly balanced. Thanks for watching this story. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel and please share your own experiences in the comment section below. Your voice and your story matter tremendously to me and to others who might be facing similar challenges. Remember, it is never too late to stand up for yourself and reclaim control of your own destiny. Age is just a number, and wisdom combined with determination can overcome almost any obstacle life places in your path. If you found this story helpful or inspiring, please give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family members who might benefit from hearing it. Sometimes we all need reminders that we are stronger and more capable than we realize. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember that you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity regardless of your age or circumstances. The most important lesson I learned from this entire experience is that trust must be earned and maintained through consistent actions, not just words or family relationships. When someone shows you who they truly are through their behavior, believe them the first time. Protect yourself, stand your ground, and never apologize for demanding the respect you have earned through a lifetime of hard work and sacrifice. Your story is not over until you decide it is over. Write your own ending and make it a good one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video with another story of courage, resilience, and the power of standing up for what is right. Remember to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Until next time, stay strong and keep fighting for the life you deserve. Looking back now, 3 years after that fateful day when Tommy warned me about his parents' scheme, I realize how much my life has transformed in ways I never could have imagined. The woman who once allowed herself to be manipulated and taken advantage of no longer exists. In her place stands someone who understands her own worth and refuses to accept anything less than the respect she deserves. My new apartment became more than just a place to live. It became a sanctuary where I could rediscover who I was beyond being someone's mother, grandmother, or caregiver. The walls were painted in colors I chose, not colors that matched someone else's preferences. The furniture reflected my taste, not what someone else thought was appropriate for an elderly person. The art classes I enrolled in opened up a creative side I had forgotten existed. For 40 years of marriage, I had focused entirely on supporting Robert's career and raising Michael. My own dreams and interests had been pushed aside, considered less important than everyone else's needs and ambitions. But at 72, I discovered I had a natural talent for watercolor landscapes. My instructor, Maria Santos, was a vibrant woman in her 60s who had started painting after her own divorce. She became not just a teacher, but a friend who understood the journey of rediscovering yourself later in life. "Rose," she told me during one of our sessions, "you paint with the confidence of someone who has been through fire and emerged stronger." The book club I joined introduced me to literature I never would have chosen on my own. We read everything from contemporary fiction to historical biographies, and the discussions were intellectually stimulating in ways I had missed for years. These women, ranging in age from 50 to 85, became my chosen family in many ways. Margaret Chen, a retired professor, became particularly close to me. She had gone through her own family financial betrayal when her adult children tried to pressure her into signing over her house. Unlike me, she had recognized the warning signs earlier and put a stop to it before significant damage was done. We bonded over our shared experience of adult children who viewed their parents as walking ATM machines. The animal shelter volunteering brought unexpected joy into my life. Working with abandoned and neglected animals who needed care and attention gave me purpose beyond my own situation. There was something healing about helping creatures who had been betrayed by the humans they trusted, just as I had been betrayed by the family I loved. One particular dog, a senior golden retriever named Charlie who had been surrendered when his family decided he was too expensive to care for in his old age, became especially dear to me. The parallels were not lost on me. Charlie had given his family 15 years of loyal love and companionship, only to be discarded when he became inconvenient and costly. After 3 months of visiting him every day, I made the decision to adopt Charlie. The shelter staff was thrilled, knowing how much we had bonded. Taking him home to my apartment was like completing a puzzle I did not know was missing a piece. Charlie brought life and warmth back into my daily routine in ways I had not expected. Tommy's weekend visits became the highlight of both our weeks. Watching him play with Charlie in the apartment courtyard, seeing him swim in the pool with the confidence I was teaching him, helping him with school projects at my dining table. These moments reminded me why I had fought so hard to protect my future and his inheritance. As Tommy grew older, he began asking more sophisticated questions about what had happened with his parents. I answered honestly but age-appropriately, helping him understand concepts of honesty, accountability, and the importance of treating people with respect regardless of their age or perceived vulnerability. He was learning lessons that would serve him well throughout his life. One afternoon, as we worked on a school report about family history, Tommy looked up from his notebook and asked, "Grandma Rose, do you think my daddy is sorry for what he did?" I considered my answer carefully, as I always did with his difficult questions. "I think your daddy is sorry he got caught and sorry about the consequences, Tommy. Whether he truly understands how much he hurt people and feels genuine remorse is something only he can answer." The legal proceedings took almost 2 years to fully resolve. Patricia proved to be a formidable advocate, methodically building a case that left no room for doubt about Michael's systematic financial abuse. The evidence was overwhelming: forged documents, falsified insurance claims, deliberate isolation tactics, and premeditated fraud spanning several years. During the court hearings, I had to face Michael across a courtroom filled with strangers. Seeing him in an orange jumpsuit, shackled and defeated, stirred complicated emotions. This was still the little boy I had raised, the young man I had been proud of when he graduated college and started his career. But he was also the person who had betrayed my trust in the most fundamental way possible. Sarah testified as part of her own plea agreement, admitting her role in the scheme to have me declared incompetent. Her testimony revealed details I had not known: how they had researched nursing homes months in advance, how they had already spent my anticipated inheritance in their minds, how they had celebrated privately when they thought their plan was working perfectly. The hardest part was listening to the evidence about Robert's affair and the insurance fraud. Learning that my husband of 32 years had not only been unfaithful but had also made financial arrangements behind my back felt like being widowed all over again. The man I had grieved for and honored in my memory was not the man I thought I had married. Linda Peterson testified via video conference from Denver, clearly uncomfortable but cooperative with the prosecution. She confirmed that Michael had manipulated her into believing she deserved the full insurance payout, showing her forged documents that supported his lies. Her testimony was crucial in proving the premeditated nature of Michael's fraud. When the judge sentenced Michael, he offered him the opportunity to make a statement. Michael stood up, looked directly at me, and said, "Mom, I know you probably cannot forgive me, but I want you to know that I never meant for things to go this far. I thought I was helping our family, and I lost sight of what was right. I am sorry for the pain I have caused you." His words sounded hollow to me, scripted by his attorney rather than coming from genuine remorse. True remorse would have been admitting his crimes before he was caught, returning the stolen money voluntarily, and seeking help for whatever psychological issues led him to rationalize stealing from his mother. Instead, he had fought the charges until the evidence became overwhelming. The financial restitution process was complex and lengthy. The court ordered the sale of assets, wage garnishment for both Michael and Sarah, and structured payments that would continue for years. I knew I would likely never recover the full amount, but the principle mattered more than the money at this point. Linda Peterson surprised everyone by voluntarily returning not just my portion of the insurance money, but additional funds as what she called moral interest. She had invested the insurance payout wisely over the years, and she felt obligated to share the growth with me as partial compensation for the years I had gone without money that was rightfully mine. Her gesture of integrity stood in stark contrast to my own family's behavior. Here was a woman who had been deceived just as I had been, yet she took responsibility and made amends when she learned the truth. It restored some of my faith in human decency that had been severely damaged by the betrayal. The media attention surrounding the case was initially overwhelming. Elder abuse cases involving family members were apparently newsworthy, and reporters wanted interviews about the broader implications of financial exploitation of seniors. I declined most requests, but I did agree to speak with a local television station about warning signs that other elderly people should watch for. That interview led to invitations to speak at senior centers and community groups about protecting yourself from financial abuse. I discovered I had a talent for public speaking and a passion for educating others about recognizing manipulation tactics. It became another way to transform my painful experience into something positive and helpful for others. Through my speaking engagements, I met dozens of other seniors who had experienced similar betrayals. There was Helen, whose daughter had slowly drained her savings account over 5 years. There was Frank, whose son had taken out credit cards in his name and destroyed his credit rating. There was Betty, whose granddaughter had convinced her to sign over her house and then evicted her. These stories reinforced my understanding that what happened to me was part of a much larger epidemic of elder financial abuse. Adult children who felt entitled to their parents' money, who justified theft as early inheritance, who used emotional manipulation and isolation tactics to maintain control over their victims. I began working with Patricia and other attorneys to advocate for stronger legal protections for elderly people. We pushed for legislation requiring additional safeguards for large financial transactions involving seniors, mandatory reporting requirements for suspected elder abuse, and enhanced penalties for family members who exploited vulnerable relatives. One unexpected consequence of going public with my story was reconnecting with old friends I had lost touch with during the years I lived with Michael and Sarah. People reached out after seeing news coverage or hearing about my situation through mutual acquaintances. Many admitted they had wondered why I had become so isolated but had not known how to help or whether their concern was welcome. Mary Patterson, my best friend from high school, called me after seeing my television interview. "Rose," she said, "I tried to reach out to you so many times over the past few years, but Michael always said you were not feeling well enough for visitors. I should have pushed harder or found another way to contact you directly." That conversation led to a reunion with several old friends, and I realized how much I had missed the support and companionship of people who had known me before I became defined primarily as someone's wife, mother, or grandmother. These women remembered the ambitious young woman I had been before I subsumed my identity into family responsibilities. We began meeting monthly for dinner and catching up on decades of missed conversations. These friendships became another crucial element of my rebuilt life, reminding me that identity and worth exist independently of family relationships and that it is never too late to reclaim connections that matter to you. As Michael's prison sentence neared its end, I had to decide how much contact I wanted with him moving forward. Tommy, now 12 years old, had been visiting his father regularly and serving as an unintentional messenger between us. The boy was caught in an impossible position, loving both his father and grandmother while trying to navigate the complex emotions surrounding our fractured relationship. I spent many hours in therapy working through my feelings about potential reconciliation. My therapist, Dr. Amanda Rodriguez, helped me understand that forgiveness did not require restoration of the previous relationship. I could forgive Michael for my own peace of mind while still maintaining healthy boundaries that protected me from future manipulation. The decision became clearer when Michael was released early for good behavior. His first call to me included requests for financial help getting back on his feet, finding an apartment, and providing character references for potential employers. Despite serving time in prison for stealing from me, he still felt entitled to my assistance and resources. That phone call confirmed that his fundamental attitude had not changed. Prison had taught him to be more careful about getting caught, but it had not addressed the underlying sense of entitlement and manipulation that led to his crimes in the first place. True change would have meant accepting full responsibility and asking how he could make amends to me, not immediately requesting more help. I agreed to limited contact for Tommy's sake, but I established clear boundaries about what I would and would not do. I would attend Tommy's school events and important milestones where Michael was present. I would be civil and cordial in those settings. But I would not provide financial assistance, personal references, or emotional support beyond what was necessary for my grandson's well-being. Sarah had used Michael's incarceration as an opportunity for genuine self-reflection and change. She completed counseling programs, advanced her career significantly, and demonstrated real growth in how she interacted with me. During one of our conversations while she waited for Tommy after a visit, she offered what seemed like a sincere apology. "Rose, I know my words cannot undo the damage we caused, but I want you to know that I understand now how wrong we were. I let financial stress and fear cloud my judgment, and I participated in something that was fundamentally evil. You did not deserve what we put you through, and I am grateful you were strong enough to protect yourself and Tommy's future." Her apology felt more genuine than Michael's courtroom statement, perhaps because it came without any requests for favors or forgiveness. Sarah seemed to understand that making amends meant changing her behavior permanently, not just saying the right words and expecting everything to return to normal. Tommy thrived despite the disruption in his family structure. He was an excellent student, popular with his classmates, and showed none of the behavioral problems that might have been expected given the circumstances. The stability and consistency of his relationship with me, combined with Sarah's improved parenting after her wake-up call, had provided him with the foundation he needed. On his 13th birthday, Tommy and I had a conversation about his trust fund and what it would mean for his future. He had always known he would inherit money from me someday, but understanding the specific amount and the circumstances that had protected it was sobering for a young teenager. "Grandma Rose," he asked thoughtfully, "do you think I would have turned out like my dad if you had not stopped him?" That question showed remarkable maturity and self-awareness. I told him that people make choices every day about who they want to be, and that his character was being shaped by watching how people handled difficult situations with integrity or without it. "Your father chose the easy path of taking what he wanted rather than earning it honestly," I explained. "You have the opportunity to choose differently because you have seen where those choices lead. The money in your trust fund is not just financial security. It is a reminder that integrity and honesty are the most valuable inheritance anyone can receive." As I approached my 75th birthday, I reflected on the unexpected journey my life had taken. 3 years earlier, I had been a dependent, isolated woman being manipulated by people who claimed to love me. Now I was independent, financially secure, socially connected, and using my experience to help others facing similar challenges. The betrayal had been devastating, but surviving it and fighting back had revealed strengths I did not know I possessed. I had learned that vulnerability does not equal weakness, that trust can be rebuilt selectively and carefully, and that it is never too late to start over and create the life you actually want. My apartment had become a gathering place for friends, a sanctuary for healing, and a launch pad for new adventures. Charlie, now an elderly dog himself, spent his days napping in sunny spots and greeting visitors with the enthusiasm of someone who understood the value of a safe, loving home. The legal victory had been important, but the personal victory was even more significant. I had reclaimed my agency, my dignity, and my future. I had proven to myself and others that age does not automatically equal helplessness, that experience can be a weapon against those who would exploit it, and that standing up for yourself is never selfish when others are trying to steal your autonomy. Thank you for listening to this journey of betrayal, survival, and ultimately triumph. If my story resonates with you or someone you know, please share it. Elder abuse thrives in silence and isolation. By speaking out, by refusing to be ashamed of being targeted, and by supporting each other, we can protect ourselves and other vulnerable people from those who would exploit our trust and love. Remember that your story is not over until you decide it is over. Age is just a number, wisdom is a superpower, and it is never too late to fight for the respect and dignity you have earned through a lifetime of contribution and sacrifice. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of courage, resilience, and the power of standing up for what is right. Until next time, stay strong, trust your instincts, protect your assets, and never apologize for demanding the treatment you deserve. Your future self will thank you for the courage you showed today in protecting your independence and security. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.